Hello, everybody, and welcome to Voices of the Goddess podcast, where we empower, inspire, and uplift women to be the goddesses they were meant to be. I'm your co-host, Julietta, also known as the Magical PT, and I am coming to you live here from sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where it's hot as heck out now, and I'm missing winter already. Summer's barely started, but here in Fort Lauderdale, I have my own physical therapy practice, which is an holistic, alternative, magical practice where I support mostly women, but some men too, and some children on their healing journeys, and helping them understand that even though I'm a healer, my job as a healer is not to heal you, but to guide you in healing yourself, because you are the only one that can heal you. And in addition to all of that, I have a creative side to me where I create jewelries from crystals and gemstones, and I paint. And when I'm not doing all of that crazy stuff, I am here on this podcast, being a podcaster, because we all need lots of hats in this life. It makes life more interesting. And I'm presently being a dog mom, which is something really new for me for a few days here. And luckily, my dog is a little bit more mellow right now than Addison's dogs.
Your dog's also quite a bit older than my dogs.
Yes, but she can be noisy when she's not happy. But right now, she's just sleeping and enjoying the show.
Yeah.
So hey, co-host, introduce yourself.
Yep. Sorry about that. I had a little bit of a dog issue. Another one. It was an explosive one. We'll put it that way.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's fun. So hi, my name is Allison Mancini. I am the co-host of this amazing podcast, and I'm excited to be here with you today. I am Operations and Human Resources Director for a company called The Goal Digger Girl. At The Goal Digger Girl, we basically help women show up authentically on social media, and we help women who are wanting to launch a business, do so, or maybe they started a business and they want to take it to the next level. That's what we do. So I am honored to serve our staff and our students, and my background and my love is in functional nutrition and in wellness. And so I get to support all of them in that way. Also as the human resources director. So it's a lot of fun. And I'm also a mom to a 25-year-old and a 22-year-old. I am also a dog mom to two very young dogs, both under a year and a half. So it's a little challenging around here sometimes. You might hear them crying or barking occasionally in our podcast interviews. And I also live in South Florida, and I think that covers it. That's all good. It's good. And we have a new sponsor for the month of June. So I'm super excited to announce our sponsor. Our sponsor is High Vibrations Energy Healing, and the owner is Rebecca Schaefer. She is absolutely beautiful, and we just had an amazing interview with her last week on our podcast. You can go check it out. And High Vibrations Energy Healing offers Reiki, meditation, and Kundalini yoga to heal emotional and physical pain and bring one into alignment with their true self. Reiki and Kundalini yoga is a powerful combination that can be used to heal subconscious patterns, strengthen the nervous system, activate the neutral mind, and bring one to higher levels of consciousness. Visit highvibrationsnow.com to learn more and book a Reiki session, participate in a cosmic Kundalini and Reiki healing circle, or register for any of her upcoming Kundalini yoga classes. And Julietta, I know that you just did one of her healing circles.
I did do one of her healing circles. It was incredible. And, as someone who I've been in the healing energy world for a very long time, it's a part of what I do as a physical therapist, and also have a lot of people in that world, in my world. And I can say, having experienced Rebecca's work, that she is truly gifted, magical. I highly recommend her. And so if you're looking for some Reiki, some energy healing in your life, I confidently recommend her.
Awesome. I love it. So today we are going to chat about saying yes to everything and why you shouldn't say yes to everything and wearing too many hats. Yeah. So I think as women, we're total people pleasers. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. We are nurturers. We want to take care of everybody. We want everybody to be happy and feel good and all the good stuff. And so we tend to say yes to a lot of things. And sometimes it can bite us in the butts. And yeah, we have to learn how to set some boundaries. And it's not that you can't necessarily say yes to things, but you definitely have to have some boundaries in what you're doing and when you're doing it. And I find that for me personally, the more I put boundaries in, the better I am. The more I put, for me, I do a lot of time blocking and a lot of scheduling, and that does help. But yeah, how about you, Julietta? Do you find yourself saying yes when you shouldn't?
So the older I get, the less I do that.
Good for you.
Yeah. And I also, a lot of it is about tuning in and feeling like, should I say yes to this or should I say no to this? And honoring what my internal guide says to do. Because I was raised by two people pleasing. I mean, my mom was a major people pleaser. Her mom was a major people pleaser.
Right.
And so it was just passed on. This is what you do. And, however you can support people, even something as simple as, I used to always be, if a friend was having a party event or whatever, I would be the first person there to help them set everything up. And I would be the last person to leave to clean everything up. And now sometimes I'm still the first person because as I was raised, if you're not early, you're late. And so I'm always the on time person, but I have given myself permission to leave a party, an event, whatever, whenever I feel like it, and even if I get there and 20 minutes later, I'm like, I'm done. I need to go home and recharge my batteries. I allow myself to do that. And I get in the car and I pat myself on the back because it was something, I didn't want to disappoint my friend. I didn't, I wanted to be there to support them. And, I don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
So, and there's things like in the past that weren't pleasing other people, but like I wanted to do it, but I would say no because I had all these other things to do. Now, if it's something I want to do, I say yes to me and do it and let everybody else worry about themselves.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. Yes. All right. Look, I just said yes. There you go. There you have it. Like programmed. Yes.
Should we bring our guest on?
Yes, let's do that. Hello, Sylvia.
I'm loving this conversation. Hello.
Welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself and tell our audience a bit about what you do.
Well, hi, I'm Sylvia Worsham. I'm based out of Austin, Texas, so another sunshine state. And I'm originally from South Texas, right on the border, so I'm full-blooded Mexican. And being raised by Mexican immigrants, well, I was a perfectionist achiever for a long time. And then it took me nearly dying in 2012 to kind of wake me up and say, you know what, I don't really like that life I'm living because like Julietta was talking about earlier, I was a people pleaser. And like Allison was saying, I had trouble setting up healthy boundaries. And it's because I grew up with certain modeling. And I'm very grateful for that turning point that I encountered because it was the greatest blessing in my life. And since then, I shifted my lens over to living life with more joy. I am an author of my first book, Journey to Me, Trust the Wisdom of Change. And it talks about turning points and how they can be life-changing and how turning inward and something I call to your soul identity, to align to it, that will bring you a lot more joy and you'll find your divine soul's purpose. And so I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I was certified with the John Maxwell team in 2017, and I'm also a Turning Points coach. And I'm just so happy to be with y'all this morning. So thank you so much for having me.
We are excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
And that's so funny. I was just in Texas. My daughter just graduated from Baylor. So I was just, yeah. And I have a ton of family that lives all the way from Austin up to Dallas. And in fact, the owner of the company that I work for, she lives in Dripping Springs. So
Ooh, yeah. So very
yeah.
close to me, about 45, 50 minutes for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's beautiful. I'm actually going to be back in Austin in July and I can't wait.
It would
So
be so awesome to meet you. So
that
yeah,
would be fun.
let me know.
Yes, that would be
Good to
really
meet you.
cool. I would love it. So we're going to jump into our questions. And our first question for you is, what is one book do you wish that every goddess would read and why? And how has it impacted you in a deep and meaningful way?
If you're starting your personal growth journey, I highly suggest the 15 Invaluable Laws of Personal Growth written by John C. Maxwell. And
Mm-hmm.
it is a book that really transformed my life back in 2010 when I took a mastermind on it. It was my first introduction to John Maxwell. And I'm very faith-based to some degree, so I aligned a lot to what John talks about. But those personal laws of growth, I've applied several in my life. In fact, the law of the trade-off, which he talks about in the book, I used during an interview when I was trying to get a job here in Austin, Texas, when I was moving in 2013 with my young son. I was getting remarried, and my former employer, Pfizer, wouldn't do a lateral move for me, even though I'd worked for them for 12 years. And so I had to start all over again. And I was interviewing with a medical device company, and they were really shocked that someone like me was willing to not take as much money to move to Austin, Texas. And I said, well, have you ever heard of the law of the trade-off? And the manager that was interviewing me said, well, no. And I said, well, I'm willing to trade off a lot of money to move to Austin and marry my soulmate, because to me, love is a lot more important and a lot more valuable. And it had happened right after my near-death experience. So it had really awakened me up to the true meaning of life and the people in it. And it was, I think, the answer that really kind of turned him, because he was very much against hiring me. And it kind of turned it around. And I've used a lot of the laws that John talks about in that book. The law of reflection is a big one that I use in my own life and as a coach, because when we don't pause every day to learn what we've learned throughout life, if we just keep going, go, and fail to pause, we don't really grow. We don't really start applying these lessons that we're learning. And so the law of reflection is a big one that I use a great deal in my life and in my coaching practice.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love John Maxwell stuff. So.
Me too.
Yeah, a little bit of junkie there. All right. Our next question is, what is your top self-care practice and how does it support you?
To me, it is huge to take yourself out on dates, ladies. Take yourself out on a date once a week, 1 to 2 hours max. And the reason why that's so important is because you are trying to improve the relationship you have with yourself. And if we go back to what Julietta and Allison, what you guys were talking about at the beginning, when you're people pleasers, is because you really don't know yourself and you're just modeling what your mother or grandmother modeled down, one generation to the next. And when you start taking yourself out on dates, you start to really understand who you are and what you love and what brings you joy. So my recommendation is to make a list of all those things that bring you so much joy, and then do it once a week. And the more you do it, the more you increase self-love and self-care in you. And the more you start setting up these healthy boundaries that bring you a great deal more joy to your life. So that's my one tip that I love. I took myself out on a sushi date and I had a nice glass of Chardonnay yesterday during the day. And I really enjoyed it. I watched people and I wrote in my journal and I did my gratitude journaling, and I was like the happiest person I could be.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great idea. I'm gonna have to start incorporating that, because I'll do stuff for myself. Like I'll go get a pedicure or I'll get a massage occasionally, but I like that. I actually have a coworker who she started doing something little similar to that, but hers is to try a new adventure every day. And it doesn't have to be anything major. It could be as simple as watching a different show or going out and hugging a tree. I mean, it can be like really super simple things, but she started incorporating that on a regular basis. And she's like, it's been amazing. And it's almost like that idea of like, taking yourself on a date. So I love that idea. I think
Yeah. I think self-love is something a lot of people miss out on. And they don't really understand what self-love is. I know I didn't. Growing up Mexican, they don't understand that concept. They think it's arrogant to love yourself. And so I think there's some elements there that could really help a great deal of people to take themselves. So
yeah, awesome.
It's a recurring theme often on the show that we all got to get to self-love. And it's funny, we have a book club in our Facebook group, and one of the things that was recommended in the book, as I'm reading, was taking yourself out on a date. And it kind of like hit me because I was single for 8 years, and so I took myself on a lot of dates. All the time I was doing stuff that, I was alone, so I could do whatever I want, whatever I enjoyed. And, now I've been in a relationship for about 1.5 years now. And when I read it, I had this realization, like, wow, you don't do things just for yourself anymore. And I'm like, it's time. The relationship is in a stable enough place that it's safe for me to now go and just do something that I want to do for me, and time to get back to that. So thanks for that. That little sign from the universe, like, yes, you got to do that. So
my pleasure. My pleasure.
Our next question for you, Sylvia, is we all have days where it's just difficult to show up, but we have to, there's, so what tools do you pull out of your pocket to rise up and get through?
I think that's a question more geared towards, why we do what we do for a living, why we get up in the mornings. And so what I do is I have a little corner in my office where I keep all the gifts that my coaching clients have given me, because every gift reminds me of that journey with that client and why and how I help them. And it empowers me to continue those days, because we all have rainy days. We all have days that, especially if you're incorporating change in your life. I mean, change, most people view change like, oh no, I'm about to step into the unknown. And the fear of the unknown really stops them from really stepping in there with confidence and faith and joy. And that's more of a purpose. They really need to work on their purpose. Like, why do I do what I do for a living? Especially as entrepreneurs, we tend to struggle a little bit more with this question because there are so many waves to this journey. There's some very, very high highs, and then there's some very low lows. And on those low days, you got to be able to empower yourself and keep going, because your light is so bright. And this world really needs your gifts. And when you stop operating from that space of empowerment, then you're really doing a disservice to yourself and to humanity, really. And so I look at those gifts and I remind myself, like, this is why you do what you do. Look at the way you empowered this person. Look where they started and where they ended up, and you had something to do with that. And so that's how I pull myself out of there. I keep it everywhere. Some I keep in my car, because sometimes it hits me in my car as I'm driving and I get like a little bit shaky, but then I pull over and I read. I have little notes from kids. I did a class just recently with second graders, and I was teaching them how to kind of coach themselves out of anything bad, like any bad feelings that were showing up for them. And so I had these thank you notes and I kept them in my car. And just the other day I pulled them out. I was not feeling so great. And I started reading them. It just started, I just was like crying tears of joy, because I'm like, this is why you do what you do. So
absolutely. And a message from a listener. She's like, wow, I tuned in at the right time. Love this. So and that's exactly why we do this. We're talking about the why. And Sylvia and I were talking before, we started the show today, and getting to this, Allison and I, we both have very full lives outside of this podcast. And, we, from time to time sit down and say, do we keep this going? And it's, messages like that from our listeners that, wow, that show that you had, the messages were just exactly what I needed to hear at that time. And thank you so much. And so it was like, we check in and it's like, yes, this podcast is serving people out there, and it's supporting women. And so yeah, we keep going and make it happen. Even when we have crazy dogs and all kinds of other stuff going on in the life, we keep it going. So our fourth question for you, Sylvia, is, and yes, everything that happens to us shapes who we are, but there's definitely some of those special big events that really impact us. So what is a life event for you, Sylvia, that has greatly formed who you are today?
The one that really created the shift from achiever to author was nearly dying in 2012, and that was a big one. And this is a big theme for women, especially. I started retaking birth control pills after the age of 35 when I started dating my second husband. I thought, I really don't want to get pregnant out of wedlock. Being from a Mexican heritage, that was the least of my worries. Because what ended up happening was I developed pulmonary embolisms and Budd-Chiari syndrome, and that really put my life in the balance. I was given a 20% chance of surviving. I faced 6 doctors that kind of came into my hospital room and said those things. And in that moment, I surrendered to whatever waited for me in the ICU. And that surrender and that acceptance of my fate really shifted my lens a great deal, and started to I started that quest into, there's a reason why I survived. I had multiple emboli. I had probably 5 or 6, and then I had a massive blood clot. And so those things really, when you face death straight away, it changes you forever. And I just started a quest into finding out what my true purpose, divine soul's purpose was. And I started to turn inward more for my answers. I was an achiever prior to that. I worked in corporate America for 18 years, and I achieved to be happy. And after that incident, I started to really turn more towards my soul identity and align more to what I was meant or created to be. And the more I turned inward, the more answers came to me. And I started to act on whatever I was being prompted to do. And the more I did that, the more my path got revealed to me. And in 2017, I had a real strong prompting that said, call Bridget, call Bridget. And that was my mentor from the John Maxwell team, who I took that mastermind from, the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And I called her, and she had years before had said, you're really talented, and I really think you would really benefit from working with us as a speaker, coach, and trainer. And because I was a perfectionist and I was an achiever and I was really a security seeker, I thought I needed in my mind medical insurance for my boy, since I was a single mom. And it was just my way of staying safe in my little zone. And not really branching out. But since that near-death experience, I started to really turn inward and step fully into the role that I was meant to be. So I went from achiever to author. And it's been a really great adventure with lots of ups and downs, because that's how our journeys are. We'll have highs and lows, but the more I turn inward, the more I see my path before me. And that's really how it impacted me. Truly.
Yeah. And so many people seek the answers outside of themselves, and the only place that the answers really exist is inside. So that's a huge thing for people to get. And the more you turn inward, the more clarity you will get.
Exactly. But it's tough for people, because they do have that modeling, and they do think they have to be a certain way, and they adopt certain belief systems from others, and they don't realize they're doing it. This is the part that I think most people miss, is the subconscious mind is so powerful. And as coaches, we aim to help people understand how to work with that mind, so that instead of working against them, it works with them, and in combination with your soul identity. You have the fear-based ego identity that is always kind of working behind the scenes, that inner voice or those thoughts that are like, no, you can't do this. Don't step in there. It's scary. Those types of voices. And then you have your soul identity, which is your higher self, the one identity that gets above the noise of the outside world. And that's where really I'm at now, and I'm like truly enjoying it. There's been times I just let go of the ego when it just shows up in my life, my fear-based ego, because ego is not a bad thing. It's just when it's fear-based that you run into problems.
And I love that you say that too, because I hear often, people that are on the path of enlightenment or whatever you want to call that, people that are growth minded, and they will say, like they want to get rid of their ego. They want to kill their ego. And it's like, no, we need our ego. Our ego is not bad, but it's just learning how to work with it in the right way.
And it's funny because when people go through change, these two identities kind of battle it out. You'll feel these pulls, and because your programming is so strong, and if you haven't started that transformation yet, where you've had major change or major turning points, that's usually when most people think, oh, it's my time to step into something different, right? And but they start moving in the direction of change, and then fear-based ego shows up. But you're right, ego is our self-image, and sometimes our self-image is based primarily from limiting beliefs, beliefs that limit our amazing capacity as human beings. And we have an enormous genius inside of us that's left untapped a lot of times because of these limiting beliefs and these patterns of behavior that kind of keep us in a perpetual state of stuck, if you will.
Absolutely. All right. So if there was one thing that you would like our audience to take away from today's show, what would that be?
I say turn inward for your answers. I think that's a big lesson. When you're navigating change, turn inward, because your answers don't really exist outside of you. Our society leads us to believe that, and that's why you're stuck. But when you start turning inward and start tuning into your soul, like Julietta was talking about at the beginning of the show, like you turn inward. If this feels right, you move forward with a decision, and you'll know right away, because I'll tell you, I talk a lot about this in my first book. There's this instinct that pulls you in a certain direction, and then your thoughts will start to, and that's your fear-based ego identity coming into play. You got to interrupt that and really turn and think, does this feel right? Because when you act, it will turn from terror to absolute serenity just with the action piece, and you'll know you're in alignment with your soul identity and whatever it's asking you to do.
Beautiful. So, Sylvia, we want to thank you so much for joining our show today. You've had a lot of wonderful bits of knowledge for our audience, and so thank you for coming in and sharing that today.
Oh, it's been truly a joyful experience for me to be with you guys this morning, and just getting to know each and every one of you. And really, Allison, when you come in July, let me know, and I'll drive to Dripping Springs. It's a beautiful drive from North Austin, so I don't mind it.
So are you by Round Rock?
Yes.
Okay, so my cousin lives in Round Rock.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I'll probably be in Round Rock too, at least one night. So I'll let you know.
Yeah, that'd be fun, because yes, I'm between Round Rock and Cedar Park. Okay. I'm the last zip code in Austin. North Austin, that is.
Well, and you know what? My cousin's actual address is still Austin, which it's only that way because when she bought their house 25 years ago, but now, I think right across the street from her is no longer considered Austin.
No, so it's considered probably Leander.
Yeah,
or Round Rock, right?
Yeah.
Our kids either go to Round Rock or Leander, and it's just a street over. It's really weird. It's really weird.
And it's a hot commodity to have an Austin zip code. So anyway.
No, it is. It probably has 78717. Check it.
I'll check it.
That. Because that's where I live, and it'd be funny if we lived in the same neighborhood. That would be hilarious. Small world.
Well, I can't wait to hear about this reunion when it happens. So you'll tell me all about it. But wrapping things up here, want to thank our sponsor, Rebecca Schaefer and Healing Vibrations. And also thank you to our audience for tuning in and listening. And if you've liked what you've heard today, please subscribe, follow, like, share with all the other goddesses out there that need to hear these messages. And if you'd like to get in touch with Sylvia, Allison, or myself, check out the show notes. All of our contact information is there, so you can find us and get a hold of us. We would love to hear from you. And with that, I want to wish everybody a magical day. Bye-bye.